is Kristen Cliburn. This will be a super short introduction, but we've known each other a long time. And I don't know if I gave you your first show, but an early show when she was right out of school, right out of UT. She's gone on.
1998?
Yeah, 1998. And so here we are again together. So wonderful. The show is just glorious. And I'm so proud to have you here. So happy to have you as always. And now we're going to listen to her.
Okay, well, I'm Kristen. So she said everything I was going to say about getting through this weather. I know some of you were on 59, and you're awesome for going forward, because I would have turned around. So, are we turning the lights out? It's up to you. I can turn it up.
Yes.
I need to read, but I have a flashlight. Oh, good. So let's go ahead and, here, a few more people are coming in, so just hold on just a minute. Did you guys bring your boat? Okay. That's better. Okay. I'm not sure how to hold this and do this all at the same time. Okay, is everybody, Emily, is everybody out of the back? Is everybody here? Everyone's here. Okay. I think I'll just pull this chair. Okay. Some people here are actual TED talkers. I am not that. I have not done a talk in a long time. So just bear with me, and we're going to start. Okay, one of the most common questions I get is, can you just tell me about your process? And that's a pretty long answer. So I can't just do it. I can show you though. So the first part of the slideshow is going to be process. It's going to be kind of technical, and then we're going to get to the guts. Okay? So, first off, I work at the silos, which is in the Mahatma Rice Factory, which some of you know, and some of you work there as well. It's one of the biggest communities of working artists in the country, with 5 large buildings that are all in the same area. It's always, something's always going on. Anyway, my studio is a working studio. It is not a show studio. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Well, isn't that exciting? One of the first things in my process is to take a painter's tape and outline, measure it out, and put it on the wall so I can feel scale and how that feels to me and my body. So that's the first thing that I do. Oh, and once I have a show scheduled, I get a floor plan of the space and measure that out, and then I sort of plot the scale and the rhythm of the show before we get going. Then I order custom canvases. They are all made here in Houston, lightning, by JS Canvas. They're high quality. I highly recommend them if you care about like every part of the process. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. So this is getting ready for Nancy's show. They also built that rack. Okay, so from there I sand the canvases sand and gesso them about 5 times before I ever paint. So they're hand sanded, hand gessoed. It is, I always say, it's putting the pain in painting, because it burns. And every now and then, my mama comes to help out. So anyway, because I spray apply, I have a separate booth in my studio that is sectioned off, and it has an exhaust system. I have to wear a full face respirator, And all of those filters have to constantly be maintained and traded out. Pretty much every week, if not sooner, depending on how much I'm spraying. So it's just to give you an idea. And this is my little baby compressor, and that's its filter. It's a paper towel that I tape around the top. I know, Mom, you taught me everything I know. Okay, so these are my tools. The tools of the trade. These are air brushes in the bottom corner, and then air guns going to the right. So I always tell people that, they're like, so how do you do this? I said, well, I use a lot of different guns and whatever, and they say, but it just doesn't register. So I try to tell them, I can paint your fingernail, or I can paint your house. And I can paint pretty much anything in between. So you can kind of get an idea. The brushes are for small detail work, the middle one for small, medium, and then obviously the large for large. Okay, this is on top of my exhaust system is my table, and that is where I mix the paints and adjust the different values and tones and whatnot. And I'll continuously do that after every pass of paint. And a lot of times I'll add a clear coat in between the colors so that one color isn't directly on top of the other color. It suspends a little bit out so that you can see them. You subconsciously register it. Okay, so one of the fun things about paint is that every brand, everything, all has a different consistency. I know the painters out there know how frustrating this is. But, so these are 5 whites, 5 different brands. And so I always do tests to see, what their behavior is so that I know what I'm dealing with. So that's just to show you one of the little, fun nuances. Okay, and now it's showtime. And that is my sexy outfit. The actual painting process is extremely physical. So the tank, I think, holds maybe 5 gallons of air, and so I have to work very quickly, and then I have to wait for the compressor to cool down before I start again. So my life is almost in 15-minute increments because I'm always spraying, waiting, spraying, waiting. In addition to that, the canvases have to be rotated. I need to talk to you, Paul, about this. Because I don't have a mechanism on the wall like a lazy Susan that would do it for me. I actually have to take them off and turn them myself. And they're heavy. The bigger they are, the heavier they are. So, yeah, I say it's kind of like being a short order chef, even though I've never been one of those. Okay, and this is fun. This is my 4 seconds of fame. That's it. Yeah. They use that for a promotional video at Spring Street. If y'all want to see it again, I'll play it. Okay. So the next 4 slides are going to be this painting, Back to Blue. I want to kind of show you from the beginning to the end. So it's sort of like a time lapse. So this is the first stage. That's the second stage. And that is it complete. So I can go, does that make sense? Yes. So, I don't know how long that took. I know a lot of people are wondering like how long did it take, but it takes an enormous amount of time to get the pigment to be a very pure color because it's going on so many thin layers on top of other thin layers. So ones like these don't take as long because they're thin and they're subtle and they are integrating with each other. But the ones like Back to Blue, Heirloom, and Miss Palomar, they have so many layers, I can't even count them. But but they all look like they're in the same plane. And one of the things I saw at Barnett Newman, the talk about Barnett Newman preparing his work, they did x-rays. And they could see through all the layers of paint, and see what was happening. So I always say, these look like they're all one layer, but if you could x-ray them, you would see a lot of different layers, and then valleys and hills and all kinds of stuff. So anyway. Okay, so that's it for process. Now, I want to talk to you about color. I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to tell you why color captivates my interest. I have always been interested in why color, how color behaves, whether it's in the natural world, anywhere, or more specifically in painting. There are many theories as well as scientific techniques to measure and analyze color. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in waves. I'm not interested in frequencies. I am interested in the behavior of color. I'll get to more of that in a second. So, this is just a picture of Crested Butte, and it was just a pretty picture. Okay, so one of the most important influences on me and my work dealing with color is the work of Josef Albers. This book is it's not a book. It's not something you read from front to back. It's a collection of demonstrations that he used to teach students with. So, I like that. But anyway, so it's kind of difficult and dry to read, but if you actually sit down with what he used, which is colored pieces of paper, it is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. And he basically shows you the mystery of color and the relativity of it. So, for instance, in this cover of this book, the two squares, the two little squares, the one on top and the one on the bottom, do those look like the same color to y'all?
No, but they are.
I mean, you cheaters, y'all. Okay, well, so basically, the idea is that one color can look like two, and two colors can look like one, and then the theories go on and on and on from there. So this, to me, appears like it's a light, mustardy color on top, and a deeper mustardy color on bottom. So, when you take away its neighboring colors, you can see very clearly that they are the same exact color. So, Albers, he didn't believe in theories. He believed in hands-on, just diving in there and doing experiments with color. So, I really appreciate his practical approach. Experimentation. Let me see where I am. Yeah. I kind of skipped ahead. Sorry about that. Okay, so that being said, there are 1,000 different experiments. I personally, what I focus on in his teachings is vanishing boundaries. This is where it's going to get a little interesting. Or not. Yes, it is. So basically, vanishing boundaries, totally lost my place here. Vanishing boundaries is when two colors of equal light intensity come together, and one of them, and they disappear. So, these guys they're getting at that, and the Edges of the Day is directly referencing this. So I want to read you something that Albers said. He said, "Nature occasionally provides an opportunity to see equal light intensities on cumulus clouds against the blue sky. When these clouds appear gleaming white in their upper part in full sunlight, separated from the rising density blue, then underneath they show gray tones as shaded white. These shades merge or even hinge in the same, very close blue. Why very close? This gray is of the same intensity as the neighboring blue below. Thus, the boundaries between gray and blue vanish, and we do not see where clouds end and sky begins. So that's why that painting, Edges of the Day, is exactly that. Okay, so in addition to vanishing boundaries, I use vibrating boundaries. That's Edges of the Day. Vibrating boundaries is kind of the opposite of vanishing boundaries in that they have two very contrasting colors that come next to each other. And this is not a severe example of that. It's just a minor one. A better one, unless you, would be like red and green. Anyway, so there's that one. These two are my most, the best examples of that. Can't shoot that. Let's put it there. Let's see. Okay, another one of my favorite references is this book, Werner's Nomenclature of Colors. I just recently found this within the last year, and it is just the most wonderful little book about color. I don't know if some of you painters out there have looked at it, but it was created by Werner, who is a mineralogist, and this is before photography. So he employed a flower painter named Patrick Syme, or Syme, I'm not sure if I can say his name, to basically create an entire catalog of like a standardized color chart for anybody to use in any field. So zoology, botany, chemistry, mineralogy, anatomy, and the arts all rely very heavily on this book as a manual. And as you can see at the bottom, it says Charles Darwin used this book to describe his observations while traveling on the HMS Pool voyage. So it's just really cool. And here it is. Okay, so I'm just going to read you a couple things. So it has these charts, and it has basically all of the, I guess, pigments that were available during that time, and we're talking like 1800s. Very current. So, for instance, bluish lilac purple, that would be the top color here. It has animal, vegetable, and mineral examples of that color. So for bluish lilac purple, the animal is male of the Lulubididum depressive. I think that's a bird. The vegetable is a blue lilac, and the mineral is, Jane, I might need your husband to tell me what this is, lepidolite. One is auricle purple, which is the egg of the largest blue bottle or fresh fly. Anyway, they're just, when you read the colors, when you just read the title and then what is in the color, they just end up taking on their own poetry. It's just a lovely book, which anybody can look at later. Another reference I use is the key to the meanings of colors, and this is kind of for fun, because most often I'll just start with color and I'll have like it'll come to my mind and I'll be very intuitive about what that color is. But I always cross-reference it at the end just to cover my bases. So this also was used late 1800s, actually I think it was 1905. And it was created by a woman named Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater. They created a book called Thought Forms, which basically pulls in metaphysical and clairvoyant ideas. So this chart is all the colors that they thought had a universal emotional connection to. So anybody in the world that had like, yellow, somewhere in them, they would understand that color yellow to mean something. This is their theory. Like I said, I just cover my bases. Anyway, so I do use it. So for instance, pink this one right here, and this one is love for humanity, and blue up at the top is devotion to a noble ideal. Sorry. And so I did definitely pull those ideas into this work, especially these two paintings. They are called Of the Heart 1 and Of the Heart 2. That's 1, that's 2. And that's just sort of to pull in ideas, prayers, meditations, a lot of different references. Okay. So it's fascinating to know, when I went to New York, Dee and I went to New York, we saw the NLFA show. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her work, but she's phenomenal. Also working at the same time in the 1900s, and she referenced Annie Besant's color theory, her meanings of colors. And so anyway, that was just a real treat. I didn't know that. Until I stumbled upon it at the Guggenheim. So anyway, that was just awesome. If y'all know her work, you should. For color theory, Albers is my guy. For painting, Agnes Martin is my gal. She has influenced my work since I can remember. I have always studied her. I've given presentations on her work, and her slides are terrible, and they always look like I was showing nothing. But anyway, I have a lot of similarities with her work in terms of just meditation, dissolution of form, the list goes on. But anyway, so just wanted to show you that. Okay. Okay, so like I just said, like Martin, I'm interested in meditation. This work specifically addresses how your eye sees, like the actual physiological happening of how your eye sees things. So this book, okay, the field of color is intended to primarily activate the rod cells in the eye, although color is also perceived by your cones. The way that I'm handling the paint and the luminosity is specifically activating the rods. The rods in your eyes. So, because I'm not a scientist or a doctor of the eye, I would like to read from you something from this book. Leonard Shlain was a neurosurgeon and also wrote this book that I reference quite often. Leonard Shlain explains, like the brain, the human eye also evolved opposite but complementary functions. Each human eye is a perfect mirror, image of the other, yet within each retina reside two fundamentally different types of cells. With elegant symmetry, the contrasting functions, the rods and cones correspond to the division of tasks between the right and left brain. Rods, named for their cylindrical shape, are extremely light sensitive. Like tripwires, they detect the slightest movement in a visual field. Distributed evenly throughout the periphery of each retina, they see in dim light and appreciate the totality of the visual field, seeing images as gestalts. Rods share with the right brain the ability to perceive reality all at once. Because rods supply the big picture, they are the key component of the visual, physical, and mental state known as contemplation. The rods enlist the entire individual to help them perform. Muscle tension diminishes, the pupils dilate, the skeletal muscles of the eye relax, unfocusing vision. Consciousness idles and a person slips into the integrated mental state of being. So, that's kind of the guts of this whole show and all my work. So thank you for bearing with me reading that, but I can't say that as well as he would. So with that in mind, I'll just show you a few. These are some sketches from my notebook. I don't need much. I have an idea. They're like 1/2 inch squares. These are just some notes. This is how organized my brain is. And this is one of my happy places, Martha. So these are just all references for future work and inspiration to come. So that concludes my talk.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, here we go. When you were showing how you are airbrushing everything, how long do you have to wait for it to dry for the next pass?
Good question. 15 minutes.
15?
It,
So it dries pretty fast then.
It does. And when I was in graduate school, I wanted to spray apply oil paint. And I don't know if y'all know Rachel Hecker, but she said, you will kill yourself. So I use acrylic paint for that reason, because it does dry quicker, dries very fast. Usually about 10 minutes, but just to be safe, I always do it in 15-minute intervals.
So when you let it dry naturally, you don't put any fans, you don't put anything on it?
No,
just leave it.
exactly right.
And then when it's dry, then you'll rotate it?
Yes. The reason I don't use fans is because it is such a sensitive surface that it will pick anything up in that room. It'll pick up fibers from my clothes, it'll pick up anything, and it'll stick to the surface. So that's always fun to go back in and do surgery with an X-Acto knife. The whole thing is actually really very labor intensive. But yeah, is this the image you were talking about? Yeah.
So the answer to the question about the compressor is that there's no advantage to you to use a bigger compressor because you want that time frame to make
Exactly.
changes.
That's right.
But when you wait for something blue, how many layers do you have to do to get the intensity and the saturation of the color?
You just have to keep going. I know what I'm going for, and I just sort of do some Hail Marys and hope it gets there. Yeah. Yes?
Did the design for any of these come from a dream?
That's a very interesting question. I would say more closely to prayer. Or images while in prayer. Oh my gosh, 3 at once, y'all are in sync. Okay, Kathy.
How much has your work, your color palette changed?
Quite a bit. I think you could answer this question. When I used to be a little, actually more subtle than this work is. It was so subtle that sometimes, quite often, I had the question, oh, what are you going to paint on it?
We actually had that exchange. That is actually not.
Yeah, I was carrying a finished painting to the elevator, and Kathy's like, she's like, oh, that's great, that's awesome. What are you going to do? What are you going to paint on it? It's finished.
Yeah, I know.
So, to answer your question, I think that, I've definitely gotten a little bit more expressive with color, a little more contrast. I'm actually, the application's a lot different. So when I first started, I was just doing what happens when two colors come together on the same plane. So back to the spray applying, what I'm doing now, adding a clear coat in between, is I'm creating like a micro architecture in that surface. So some are raised, some go back. The 3 on the back wall, sinking and soaring 1 through 3, they are all, they have the least amount of paint at the top, and they have the most amount of paint at the bottom. So it's not only a change in color intensity or hue, it's actually in the quantity. So you may or may not know that, but you will register it physically on some kind of emotional or physical level.
So do you ever think you'll do something live, like red and green?
I do that. I have red and green. Miss Palomar?
Talk about
Did you guys go in that other room?
The room never.
Yes, yes. So I do have red and green. I have, Dee has a beautiful green one in her house. One of the reasons I wanted to try to keep the palette, because this is one big room, and because of the way your eye perceives this color, I wanted to keep them all kind of in a rhythm. I think you can kind of see they're kind of inverses of one another. These two are inverses, those two are inverses, and then those just share the same weight, if you will. So
you shouldn't split them up, is that what you're saying?
I just, well, in fact, when Mrs. Would you like to buy all of them?
It's a family.
Yeah, that's right. But so Lindsay was just asking about Mrs. Palomar, which is this red one on the back wall. And somebody's here, but they're late. We'll start it over. They're dry.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Mrs. Palomar, basically, after I finished the show, the body of the work, I had 1 week to go before delivery. And out of the blue, I had this image. And it was fierce, and it would not let me go. And I thought, I should go get massages. I should go have a vacation. No, I didn't. I got back to work, and Mrs. Palomar, her little sidekick, came out. And it was just this intense need. But and I got worried. I wasn't going to bring it to the gallery because I knew Nancy was going to fall in love with it. She was going to make it the first make that you see. And so I wasn't going to bring it. Do I dare tell this? No, I won't tell that. So anyway, we compromised. So we put her in her own sexy little room. And it has to do with after image and how your eye retains color. And so if you put that in here, it would rob the color from the subtle ornaments. So that's why you don't see red and green in these, but also red and green, the rods really do like blue. They like it's more soothing. Yes.
I have a question. Looking at the paintings, I'm always amazed at how perfect they are as far as there doesn't seem to be any mistakes. And so what I'm wondering is, are there a lot of like overspray and things that are terrific? Because you paint vertically, right?
I paint vertically, but like I said, I turn it all the time.
Right. Okay.
So
if something starts to drip,
nothing drips. It's a freaking crisis, okay? Yeah.
Or like if your gun spurts, right? Like.
All right, I'll tell you a secret, because you guys all made it out here, so I'll just tell you everything. So on Back to Blue, I was really tired. Like it was so heavy, and I'd already had too many battles with it. And so I was finished with everything, but the top and bottom, I wanted to have a nice crisp white or gray-white edge. And so, but it has to be, it's the final pass. Normally, I would do it at the bottom, flip it, spray, so that there was no possibility of white going anywhere near that blue. All right. So, because I was getting a little lazy and tired, I thought, it's the last pass, I'm just going to do it. So I got up on a ladder, and I went and I started going, and my nozzle had a chip in it, and it squirted white paint all in the blue area. Luckily, it just sprayed white all over. And my assistant.
What did you say when that happened?
I can tell you, I know what she said. She called me, she did.
A lot of words, yeah. There was profanity. And I just started working with a new assistant, lasted a very short time. And she was like, ooh, anyway, they can be solved. You just have to sand it down. Surgery.
Did you you have to start like maybe the whole?
No, because of the layering, the way that I do it, it doesn't go that deep. So I can fix the mistakes, and they happen all the time. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when you begin a painting, you know at the outset exactly what color you use or is it evolves?
That's a good question. I kind of know a starting point. So for this show, these two paintings were my starting point. And they have, there are two others, that one, this next one, a back wall, or there's one in between that's not shown. And even Edges of the Day, they kind of all just started organically being made off of that initial palette. So then they kind of branch off. So then the middle one back there is a combination of these two colors, and then the top part goes to the one next to it, and then the gray from that one goes over there. So it's kind of ends up being like a visual memory game. And so from the bottom of that blue, I wanted to take intensity much further, and that's how these guys came out. And so what they are is sort of inverses of one another. So where the ultramarine stops, it kind of overlaps a thin layer of Payne's gray, and then it goes to the white airy part. So I took that Payne's gray that's very thin and started to make it a predominant feature in the next painting. So that's what's on the top and the bottom, is that Payne's gray that's in that's faint. And then if you were to imagine sort of like cinematically what that next above the white would be, it would be the center of the airway, be the center of that painting. So it all has its own, I start with something and they kind of just move and they make themselves. They start to communicate with each other. That makes sense?
Do you ever get a reaction with the colors, different colors that you're not anticipating in terms of the way they look?
Yes, definitely that happens.
Is it usually a positive surprise?
You know, there's a graveyard in the studio. There's a graveyard with some.
Is it correct?
Yeah. Emily,
Can you tell us about how you name your paintings?
how I name my paintings. Oh, I should have brought my thesaurus for one thing. I have my high school thesaurus, this big thing, and I usually sit with it for a week and make everybody, including my mom, she taught English for 30 years, insane. So that's a very good question. It's a very hard answer. I really try to capture whatever that painting became. One of the paintings in this show has a very special title to me, which is Edges of the Day, and it is after a poem. Can I share all of this? That a friend of mine, Sam, wrote for a friend of mine, Lindsay. And it's kind of a love poem, and it's very special, it's very sweet. So I asked him if I could please borrow that one little part of it for that painting. So basically they're open-ended. I try to pull in the process, what's happening, and poetry, some kind of poetic nuance around it. So for instance, these are of the heart. So that's a contemplative prayer in Christianity and in Buddhism. And how I want you to relate to it is in sort of a calm reverence of some kind. I do not want you to do something like Rothko and Barnett Newman, where you are supposed to cry. I do not want you to cry. And then after that book, the nomenclature of colors, that inspired a few of the other paintings that are in the storage of the heron and of the dove. And so they just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know until I see the painting, and then I just really work a long time to make it what it is. And this big painting here, betwixt and between, that really makes sense to me. When you're physically standing in front of it, your gaze is right there in the middle. And you're being pulled up and down, but your focus is right there. So it just makes sense. Yeah. Any other questions? Hi, welcome. Nancy?
So I have a comment and then sort of a question. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your work and your process. And, you know, every artist talk is different because everybody has something that, you know, very personal to them that they want to share. But I just love that you want to talk about the process because living with these paintings, you know, for as long as we have it, we can only imagine, everybody looks at it and they say, how does she do that? Right? Because it's such a mystery, and the mystery is, I think, all the beauty of the work. But for you to really break it down, I mean, I feel lucky because I get to go to your studio and see all of this, but I think for all of us here today, it's really, it's so helpful and to understand sometimes things that look simple are incredibly complicated.
That's right.
Such as life, right?
Yes.
Such as life. Yeah, and then the other thing that I want to say is, because I've known you for so long, and I know what your work looked like in 1998, so I bet a lot of these people don't know that you used to work on that. Right. And that was an amazing process, but when I listen to you talk about this work, it completely relates to that. It absolutely does. It completely relates to the taking away from and then building back up. Absolutely. So do you want to talk about how you reflect from that to this?
Sure. So when I first worked with Nancy in the late 90s, I carved wood for about 10 years. Plywood, awesome. It's awesome. I like small particles, apparently. But anyhow, so what I was doing with that was I would take an angle grinder or hand tools and follow the wood grain, and then I would go back into those spaces that I just created with the machine or by hand and use the mechanical pencil to bring out those lines. Super neurotic. But I also a lot of times used color theory in that, which was, you know, whatever neighboring color, what kind of partner it was, and then I would build around that. So I was very much using similar ideas, a different chapter in that. But so what I was going for in that was along the lines of meditation and this and that. But a lot of times I wasn't communicating that to people. They loved the surface, they loved the subject, but they weren't understanding that element. And so I was trying to clarify what my voice was in that work. And so it meant departing from the woodcarving and coming back to a simpler surface. So that's how I arrived at this. It's amazing. Okay, I'm yawning people.